I caught a little bit of heat from the Taylor Swift army. I'm not trying to be a hero, but I was a hero. Like, yep. I was just doing my part, dancing. Kevin Hart one time says to me, "You can't go backward, you go forward." But what I'm going to tell you right now, listen what I'm saying. He said, the internet, are you hearing me? He said, the internet is not a launch pad for everybody. And Cool DJ Red Alert is like my Lord and Savior. I was just elated that the DOC would answer my messages, and then he would follow me, and then he was, listening to my music and saying, "Keep going." More love than you could imagine for Angie Martinez for a bunch of reasons, for a couple reasons. One, she was the first person to play Two Weary Travelers on the radio. I have a 35-year history in the industry. Bad Boy had a big thing. Not the baby oil parties. You know what I mean? Try to put yourself in a position with your responsibilities where you can get to as many things as possible. My point of view is a dope 90s rapper stuck in the struggle, unapologetically hip-hop, unapologetically for the underdogs, and thirdly, I am unapologetically, and I think more than anything else, unapologetically for the supporters.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome special guest, hip-hop veteran, Mikey Barslow. Check him out. Thanks for coming on.
What's up, man? Yo, big accolades with the veteran. I appreciate that. I'm gonna just add in there, non-validated veteran, man. I'm definitely a veteran, man, but non-validated.
Whereabouts are you from exactly? And then from there, when did you first find hip hop?
I'm from a place in New Jersey. Well, the easiest place to say where I'm from is basically my home area is Bruce Springsteen's home area. As a matter of fact, Bruce Springsteen, where he grew up, is literally 3 minutes from me. And the high school that he went to is the high school I went to. Obviously many years later. Yeah. But my mom and my aunt, my uncles, they all went to high school with him. So that's the area of Jersey I live in, and not too far from a lot of famous, areas for music in general around our area: Asbury Park, Long Branch, Freehold. So I'm from that area. Monmouth County is where I'm from. And as far as finding hip hop, I found hip hop when I was young. Actually, the way I found it was back in the day, people would have, cassettes, and they would pass them around. You know what I mean? Before you knew about it, people had cassettes. So I was hit off with a cassette, and it was basically, I want to say, Rapper's Delight, and let's see, probably the Fearless Four plus one more. Like a lot of hip hop acts that didn't get the trajectory that the Sugar Hill Gang got with, Rapper's Delight. So I was listening to that, and then from there, you find the radio, and there wasn't a lot on the radio as far as hip hop, but you just keep your ear to the street, and different rap songs would come on the radio, which I immediately fell in love with. But then as time got older, you start getting more of these tapes, from friends in different areas. My cousin would give me these tapes, and I fell in love immediately with hip hop. As time went on, you learn more that it was more than just a music, that it was a culture. And when that happened, I fell in love with the culture.
Who would have been one of the first people that influenced you?
I'd say, I hate being so cliche, but you know what? There was only so many at the time. So, the Cold Crush Brothers, the Melly Mel and the Furious Five. I mean, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, of course, Melly Mel. Once they dropped, cliche, but once they dropped the message, Everybody was like, bonkers over that. And then once that happened and the movies started coming out, you know what I mean? That really had me like, you know,
Yeah,
as
Beat
everybody,
Street.
oh my God, Beat Street and Crush Groove and
Yeah,
Wild Style and, Style Wars and yeah, oh my God,
yeah.
and it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool. I guess I've seen a video too of you back in the day, Two Weary Travelers. The jam is on. That was awesome.
Right. Oh, yeah. Good looking. Yeah. Yeah. We had a really rough road. Since you brought that up, I'm just going to touch on that real briefly. I'm learning. And first of all, let me just say this for everybody that's out there. And me and you've been going back and forth for a while. You know, I've been in your corner. Um, and then you came back at me and we were going back and forth and said, let's do this interview. And then you had something going on. Then I had my couple of surgeries, and then so I'm really, really happy to be on with you.
Yeah.
And I gave and I've always been like this, by the way. I've been that guy before people started saying it. I was that guy that was doing it. Like now people say, give people flowers while they're alive. Give them their accolades while they're alive. Don't celebrate them when they're dead. And it seems like not only that, but a lot of different things I say. And I'm not trying to say that somebody bit me or that I'm a genius or anything like that. But I swear to you, man, I will say something, like a motto that I have. For instance, my, you know, talent over numbers has been a motto that I've had for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I'll hear other people, kind of say it. I don't get credit because I'm an underdog. And unfortunately, in the industry itself, outside of hip hop, even, the industry prioritizes popularity over talent. And they definitely 100% prioritize a bag and getting money over anything that could, represent the culture, unless it's a bag. So where I'm saying that, where it applies to you is I have the utmost respect and love for you and people like you that start these media platforms that if you get the big guys, which you have, some of the DOC, corrupt, I mean, the list goes on, the people that you've had on that I respect and that I got a lot of love for, but you also get the middle range guy that's, hasn't quite made it, but they're bigger than the startup guy. And then you get the startup guy. So you have all three levels of entertainers.
Yeah.
And that means a lot to me, man. That means a lot. It should mean a lot to everybody, but it means a lot to me because you would be surprised how many people out there, are sitting there and they're hypocritical and they say, "Oh, where's the hip hop? We got to represent hip hop," But yet, you got hip hop incarnate, and nowadays, nobody could be more happier. And I don't mean to run on, but nobody could be happier than I am that the winds of change has blown around, and they take all these trending rappers and kind of blew them out of the narrative. And now we got all our hip hop, I call them superheroes to me, back in there. Now, that's not to say, because I caught a lot of heat over that statement, that's not to say that I don't love a lot of the newer artists and whatever. I don't want to say I don't have any use for, but I have a problem with all the hip hop stations and the hip hop podcasts and the hip hop, and I'm doing the air quotes with my obeying my thirst, and they have these people that are popular, but they are not hip hop. So, and I said that for a long time, and then I started hearing a lot of different people, and everybody was like, "Get off your soapbox. Who are you? You're a nobody. Now, I've had some of the bigger podcasts say to me, "Listen, man, we just have the hip hop. We're about hip hop." And I've had my assistants do my talking for me as well, but I could fill I could fill a 5 hour show if we're talking, with stories and anecdotes, if you will, and my love of hip hop and timelines and whatever. And people out there that love hip hop, if that's what you're about, would love it. But they're hypocritical in that they only stick to the superstars. Now, I'm happy that all the superheroes are, again, blown in there. But what it does is now that a lot of them are in there, and not all, just I'll even go to say most,
Yeah.
they don't allow for people like myself, like you do, like other media platforms like you do. I have a 35-year history in the industry. I'm talking about meetings and behind the scenes and producers and how I got there and getting screwed over and all together. If I could get all my albums back, me and my partner, we got about 10 albums if we could get them all back from the reels that we lost from producers that didn't get paid. So all that being said, and now out of the way, I appreciate you more than you know. And that's why I couldn't wait to get on here with you, because of A, the people that you've had on, and B, your love of hip hop and your love of artists and underdogs. Man, that's key, bro.
Man, thank you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me as well. So yeah,
And
just hearing
the cool accent, man. I
it.
love Australian guy. I love the accent, man. If there was and I'm not just saying because it's you, bro. If
Yeah,
there was any accent in the world, dude, like what I
yeah.
mean, I'd be like, I'd have that accent.
Yeah, I
But
know.
anyway, yeah. So I
Thanks.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same. I'm glad that you're here, and it's good talking to you. I want to ask, what's been the hardest part of your journey in the industry?
Hard, I said, but also the hardest part is that unfortunately people say they want hip hop. People say they love hip hop. And once upon a time, and I could go down a whole list of people, but I'll just say right off the top, Biz Markie. Biz Markie would say he loved hip hop, and he showed it every day. You hear all the stories about Biz. And if you see the documentaries, you also see that not only did he love hip hop, he had no problem with putting people on or extending opportunities, even if it meant, and he knew in the back of his mind, you know what I'm saying? He knew that some of these artists were more talented than him, might have been better looking than him, might have been whatever, but he had such a big heart and such a love for the culture that he was such a big hearted guy that he would bring people in, and he not only gave them opportunities, he gave countless people careers. And now those people are the legends that we sit here and speak about.
Yeah.
And what makes me sad, is that those same people, not all, but some, forgot the struggle. They forget, like some people think, that you have to have had superstardom to be talented. To be, hip hop history, you have to be mentioned amongst the gods in the industry. But that's not the case. I can tell you to this day, and it's been all the way up from the beginning, because keep in mind, me and my boy, like I before I even met my boy, let me start there. I was writing rhymes and trying to become a rapper before that. Now, I was, to the extent of what I would do was, back in the day, what you did, and I'm sure you probably heard this story before, the best you could do is look on the back of a cassette or your vinyl and get an address, and you would go there and you'd knock on doors with whatever you had. You know what I mean? And I got to keep it 100. All I had was I can rap and I could do it in person. You know what I mean? That was the start of my, what I call the monkey in the music box. I don't know if you ever saw the old cartoons or the guys on the street, they wind the music box and the monkey does his little dance. Well, that's what happens with rappers when you're coming up. People will say to you, you can rap, oh yeah? Let's hear you. Then you have to rap on command. Well, that's all I had. And I was knocking on doors back in 88. So back in 88, there wasn't a whole lot of white rappers. You know what I mean? As a matter of fact, the only ones that I knew of course, because again, myself like others, you can only go with what you know and what you hear and what people put out there. And all I heard of was Search, because I used to see Search all over the place, man. He was like, he was, as they say, outside all the time. And then occasionally you would see a dude named Everlast. You know what I mean? And, Everlast, from, I'm sure Whitey, he became into House of Pain. And then he went into like singing with a guitar, like Whitey Ford, and sings the blues. But I only saw them two guys. But then as you get your ear to the street, you start hearing of people that the masses never heard of. So to this day, believe it or not, the same people that are saying, well, who are you? Mikey Barslow, Funky Hobo #1, even Two Weary Travelers, which was our group, we never heard of you. Because if you never made superstardom, you don't get credited with any of your accomplishments. That's the same as, like, I always attribute it to history, and especially Black history, all the inventions and the contributions from a street sign to a light bulb. There was a Black guy that invented it, but because of the times, he was stripped of those rights and patents and everything else. And some white guy, maybe Thomas Edison or whoever, stole those inventions. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's the case with the whole hip hop thing, stealing anything, but the same thing goes true. If those guys never got famous for their inventions before they were stolen, then you'd never hear of them. So to kind of wrap up, what really bothers me, the hardest thing, is that there's no more of people taking you under their wing and lending a hand. I mean, very, very few. I was blessed by, a couple of people, and it doesn't take much for me. I'm a very easy guy. Like, and I'm sure you know this story. Like, I was just elated that the DOC would answer my messages, and then he would follow me. And then he was, listening to my music and saying, keep going. Yeah. He couldn't do much more than that, because he was like, listen, I'm doing a million things, so there's nothing I can really help and do for you, but I like what you're doing. He was even rocking my shirt in a picture. That means more than a Grammy to me. You know what I mean?
Awesome, yeah.
People that I have looked up to and that I admire so much, because I know everybody says it and they wear the hats and the shirts, I am hip hop, or, hip hop is. I don't know too many people, and my friends will say this. My boy will tell you in my group, my man Jim Sinner, there's not too many people that love the culture more than me. And I'm talking about all elements. And to be quite honest with you, as much as I love the emceeing element, because it's what I do, because I never learned to DJ, I did, do some spraying, you know what I'm saying? I did some writing for a while, you know what I mean? I wasn't terrific at it, but I could do it, and I love it, and I think it's amazing, the guys that are out there doing it, you know what I mean? B-boying, you know what I'm saying? I got into B-boying, I could do that. Crazy Legs, I am not by any stretch of the imagination, but I fell in love with the Rocksteady crew, you know what I mean? And anybody with a high level of skill, but I mean, they are the pinnacle. You know, they always will be the pinnacle to me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But my love, you know, all love is DJing. I love
Yep.
the hip hop DJ, and I always give them respect. I always give them love because, to be honest with you, that's where it all started from. Everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It started from the hip hop DJ, and that's why since the beginning of me recording, and I, you know, back in '89, me and my partner in Two Airy Travelers, we did our first songs. Well, let me just rewind that. Our first studio song,
Yep.
I said we gotta have a DJ on it, and my man said, "Yo, we got. I know this dude, you know, DJ Skills." So we had him on it, and it was called "Make a Change." And it was basically an anti-racism, pro-black lyrics, um, you know, pro-history, and anti what was going on in, you know, with the racism everywhere in the news, you know. But we had a DJ on that. So since then, every 5 songs, I'll have a DJ scratching on it, and that's the way that I've always done it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. I love that you do that. You know, shout out to DJ Skills as well. Man, that's
Oh, I love him. Skills knows it, man. And you know what? He's we always say he's our unofficial DJ because for me he's the only DJ locally that I'll use, and even going forward, if I do a world tour, he's going to be the guy that gets the call. You know, I love the dude. Not only prior to him contributing to us, I heard him, you know, DJing functions beyond that because he DJs functions. So, you know, and he had a group, Perverted Dialect, which was another group in our area that got, you know, some nice accolades. They had a write up in the source and some other things. So if anybody wants to know about them, they should look them up. Perverted Dialect, dope. You know what I'm saying? You know, and actually Sham actually DJs still with DJ Skills. You know, they go by the Long Branch Sluggers.
if you're stuck, you say you're stuck on an island, and for the rest of your days you can only listen to 3 albums. That's it. What 3 albums you
Oh,
taking?
you know what? For you,
Yeah.
I'll answer that because you know what it is. I always feel like, and everybody has these. It's not just you. A lot of people got, you know, the papers. This guy or this guy, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like, you know, all the other, you know, the even the huge, you know, podcast. They do it all the time.
Yeah.
Would you like this guy or this guy? And
Yeah.
even the if you heard of a guy, Big Boy in L.A., he just started doing it, or I just saw him doing it a lot with the papers. But I always feel like I'm disrespecting the other person, and I love them all. So
Yeah.
I want to work with everybody. I love everybody, and I don't know who's got the real sensitive, you know, disposition, you know, to where, you know, I might want to work with, you know, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
you know, in these 3 albums, I might not list Ice Cube, you know, and I really want to do a song with Ice Cube, but
Yeah.
I didn't. I always think in my own mind, and I get inside my own head that he goes, "Hey, remember when you were on Thomas Berryman and you didn't list me in those things? Don't kick rocks." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but for you, I'll do it. And I'm so cliche. I got to be honest with you, you know, with mine. You know what I mean? If I had to, I would have to say, and this is strictly on, you know, you said albums, right? Not songs, albums.
Albums. Yeah,
Like I have
albums.
a full album. All right.
Full
And
album.
it's no disrespect. It's no disrespect. It's, you know, because I love the Cold Course brothers. I love actually Grandmaster Cass. You know, no offense to the other fellas, but Grandmaster Cass is that guy to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was like that guy. He was like the bully that just kicks in the door and says, "You're gonna listen to me." and he had that charisma to make you listen. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say Illmatic. I mean, no surprise. I'm gonna say, as much as I love everything by them, because they're, no surprise. Like, one of my favorite groups is Tribe Called Quest, but Low End Theory. And oh, see, this is the hard part, because there's so many, oh my God, the Boogie Down Productions, and then, I got to be honest with you, Public Enemy, like, at the time of my life when I found them, they actually literally saved my life, because I was in a very racist environment, and trying to get through, and other things, but I was trying to get through, and listening to them got me through. Oh, it's so hard. And then there's Boogie Down Productions. I'm just going to say, and I hate when people do this, because when I'm watching people at home do this, I'm like, just say it. Say it. I go into, ever see the comedian Sam Kinison?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him, Sam Kinison, and he goes,
yeah.
Well, that's how I feel. I got to go with Public Enemy, and I got to go with It Takes a Nation. You know what I mean? That album is just like phenomenal. You know what I mean? If I only get three, those got to be. Did I say three? I said
three.
Illmatic.
Tribe Called Quest.
Illmatic. Tribe Called Quest. Yes, right. Illmatic and Public Enemy. Yep. Yeah. But there's just so many. The Crash Crew. I mean, Crash Crew in the early days, as far as albums that I would put on, and I actually broke the cassette. I listened to the cassette so many times that I guess it gets loose. And I don't know if you've ever had this happen. Because I don't, to be honest with you, as much as I've been watching you, I never heard you say an age. So I don't know if you're in the pocket of my age, or if you're a 90s baby or what, but did you have, were you a big cassettes guy?
When I was a kid, yeah, we had cassettes.
Yeah, I did. Well, the reason I ask is because, like, I have nieces and nephews that never heard of them. My kids they know cassettes only because I'm their father. If I wasn't their father, they'd have never heard of a cassette. They'd have heard of a CD.
Yeah.
But if you played a cassette too much, it seemed like it would get wound up in the thing, and you had to open your boombox, and you had to gently get it out, and you had to, mess around with, like, the pause and play. Like, I forget the way you had to click the buttons to get it to release the tape. And now you got the tape out. Now you got to take a pencil and put it in the cassette and wind it back up. You know what I mean? And hope that it don't snap. Well, I did that so much to a bunch of my cassettes that the cassette actually snapped. And I even tried taping it. You know what I mean? And that worked somewhat, but I didn't want to ruin my box. So I ended up having to get another cassette. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you got me gun to the head, those three records, I'd have to bring those three. And even sitting here, it's making me jittery saying it, because I can't tell you how much I listen to so many cassettes. Like, even like I can tell you upstairs, between vinyl and my cassettes, I must have 100,000, you know what I mean? Like, it's so many. But anyway.
If with all the years you've been active and in the industry, what advice would you give to someone starting out if they're day one?
Well, nowadays, see, because back when I started, it's way different than this. And you got to adapt. And I understand that, and I hear what people are saying. And the thing nowadays, first of all, the things that's the same nowadays is, you really have to know the right person. And a lot of people say that, and I'm not saying, that it's not possible, because it happens all the time. Yeah. Nowadays, the right person, as same as back, when I started, the right person can always get you in the right rooms. They're connected. They're knowledgeable. You got to hope that whatever you're doing, whatever you're lane is, that they have a love for that. Like, if you're a hip hop artist, that this guy that can get you in the rooms is a hip hop lover. You know what I mean? But so number one, I would say, find the right person. Number two, if you can, not to be again cliche, but you got to be outside. You got to be seen. That's the hard part, even with what we're attempting, and a lot of guys like me are attempting that have entered life. You know what I mean? And you know they haven't figured out like the algorithm to get paid from the music yet. So you got a life outside of that. You got mortgages, you got a car payment, you got to go to work every day. So no, you can't, you know, every time somebody announces something, you can't be at that something. Like back in the day, we were at that something. You know what I mean? When we were younger, we were at that something, whether it was a video music box function, whether it was a heavy D picnic, whether it was a bad boy had a big thing. Not the baby oil parties, you know what I mean? But we never were in the in crowd for that anyway. But Bad Boy did have functions that weren't those freak off things. They were actually just hip hop functions and barbecues and whatever. And a lot of people did. So we were at those functions, video music box, Yo MTV, you name it. We were at these functions, not to mention. So I would say to these people, get out there and do as much as you possibly can. And it has nothing to do, by the way, FYI, let me just stop. And I'm sorry if I stop and go and it drives you crazy. Throw up a green or red flag if I do it too much, man. But what I'd like to say to a lot of people is it has nothing to do with age. Age has nothing to do with, getting in or what you could do or whatever. It's responsibility, because you could be a 17-year-old kid that got your girlfriend pregnant, and now you're the only one that's taking care of that baby. So no, you can't go out when Millie's is having a function. No, you can't split when Drewski's having a next movement thing, even if it means you might get seen. You know what I mean? So I would say before you get into any responsibilities, and if you plan on being an artist, try to postpone having kids, try to postpone a career job if you can afford to do that. If you're younger, and if you're older, what I would say is try to put yourself in a position with your responsibilities where you can get to as many things as possible. Unless you got a lot of money, in which case, because I don't condone these people that are buying views and paying for followers and all that other horse shit. I never was down with that, And what gets me is, if you're an artist, that happens to, be plugging along and you get like 3,000 views and then another one was 3,000 views, the way it used to be is, if you got, a banger and people are like, yo, that shit is dope, and you get 50,000 views, people are like, he bought the views. He's a views buyer. You know what I mean? But I would say to them, people, without doing any of that shenanigans, take your money and put yourself in a position where you can be at different functions, where you can, get your videos made, get out there, learn, or if you have to pay somebody that knows this new internet world in and out, and get that person, pay that person, to, make the algorithm work for you. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, it's very, very hard, because talent ain't it. You know what I mean? Like I've had And who better to tell you? I've had legends sit there, and nowadays people aren't lying. People give you the truth. It ain't like it used to be where they can, yeah, that shit is dope, whatever, and they can keep it moving. People don't care anymore. They'll tell you, listen, man, keep working on what you're doing, man. That ain't it. At least the people that I've seen. You know what I mean? So you get out there and get the right people in your corner, because talent ain't gonna get you there. Even with all these, like I said in the beginning, giving you credit, these big podcasts that are hip hop podcasts, these, pinnacle, and I don't want to say the names, but everybody knows who they are. All these top of the line, they don't want you. What they're just interested in a bag. They talk, most of them, and I'm not saying all. I don't want to, put anybody off. But again, they say they love hip hop. They say they really want good stories. You know what I mean? Like, I got stories for days. You know what I mean? I've met, again, not superstardom, but you don't have to be a superstar to meet just about every hip hop legend that there is, and throw in a bunch of movie stars and celebrities. I got stories for days. You know what I mean? But it takes people like you to let people tell their story, because even, doing the posts, like, and I had, unfortunately I had, and I know you're aware of this, at least I think you are. I never was a million follower guy. Like, I never had a million followers. Even at my best, I had a lot of successful videos, 100,000. My one was like, I think got up to almost 1 million views. I had actually 3 or 4 videos that almost got 1 million views, but for whatever reason, they get yanked, or somebody out of the blue says something about your video, and then YouTube freezes it and wipes out all your videos. You know what I mean? And they'll let you repost it, but they take away all your likes and all your comments and all your views. I've had that happen to me a bunch of times. You know what I mean? But we've never bought anything. We've always were one to be pretty successful. But what really killed us, or killed me, I always joined it as a group effort, my whole team. But what killed me is, you plug away, you plug away, you plug away, and you finally get to like 50,000 followers. Now you're doing your thing, and you're a nice guy like me. I'm a good guy, man. I've never taken a penny. I've done hundreds of features only because I love hip hop. And could I use the money? Of course I could. You know what I mean? But there's other people that need exposure. There are other people that love hip hop, and there's other people that love what I do and love my style and love my rapping. So I'm not going to begrudge somebody over money, because I love this that much. I've done hundreds of them. And so when I started doing them overseas, I started doing the UK and South Africa, and I'm not blaming it from being international, but I started getting a lot of people going, oh, how about you do me? And you have to say no to some people. It's like, there's not enough time in the day. And I don't know if it was that or what, but during that period of time when I was doing a lot of that, I got a hacker that hacked everything. And they basically just wiped out my whole social media presence. Like, literally. And it was weird how they did it. And I still don't understand it, because I'm not the techiest guy in the world. They didn't just hack me. They hacked my accounts, but they continued to use my accounts. Like, I saw from the outside, I saw somebody using my account, but I couldn't get it back. And trying to get a hold of Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or any of these people is impossible. But what I don't understand is, on your wall, you got all the pictures, and it's mostly me. You know what I mean? But yet, this guy who keeps the name and everything. He kept my name and everything. Like he basically really, and it really fucked me up, man, because I was finally plugging up there because the industry, all they care about is not talent. They care about popularity. And in popularity, what I mean is they care about views. They care about likes. They care about, actually, I'm finding out they really don't give a shit about comments. You know what I mean? Because I've had a few of those videos that maybe like let's just say you and every other podcast that I was on, that's respectable podcast, they gave comments. And then below that, it would be like, you know, famous people, you know, the DOC or Lord Jazz from Lords of the Underground or Redman or whatever, respectable people. And they don't really give a shit about the comments, to be honest with you. What these people that you would prospectively have sign you or play you or have you on the show, all they care about is, does this guy have 10 million followers? And in a day and age where it's now all about hip hop, and some people are now, I see that too now. You know, like I said, years after I said it, I saw a lot of people on different interviews. Nicki Minaj was one of them, talking about, you know, talent over popularity. That's the way it should be, but it's not. And I've been saying it for years, you know what I mean? But I see other people saying it, and so you see all these other people saying it, but they don't mean it. It's just all about popularity, man, and it really bothers me because it's not just about me, Tom. It's other people, and I swear to God, is on everything I love. There's other people. I love hip hop so much, and I love talent, and I'm so unapologetically for the underdog that my whole life, even when I couldn't win, I love to see people that deserve to win. I do. I just love to see them blow up. I would love to see you tomorrow be the next, you know, other show that we were talking about. I would love it. It would make, even if you didn't have me on, just me watching you and seeing what you do. That's just how I've always been. You know, so there's so many people that I've met, especially in my home area, that could give Nas a run for his money. You know what I mean? And I'm not even kidding. I'll say it publicly. There's MCs in my area that, you know, everybody talks about J. Cole and the Big Three and Kendrick and you know, Pusha and whatever. We've got that right here in Monmouth County. We just can't get a look. You know what I mean? So when people say it must be you, to me, maybe you just don't got it. It ain't me. I mean, the problem with our area, I will admit, is our area, probably more than most, isn't like me. We don't like to see each other win. You know what I mean? Like when I was the one that was the first, well, me and my partner, Jim Center, when we were the ones that were the first ones signed in our area, we didn't have the hometown support. Like we got the DAPs, like good looking, and a couple of the other groups were happy for us. Oh, good looking. But most of the other MCs or singers or whatever, you know, they were crabs in a barrel. They had that crab in a barrel mentality, which they don't understand. If I make it, you're coming with me. So if you and everybody you know would get out there and buy our record and watch our video and share, well, once the internet came out, you know, because in the beginning there wasn't that. It was just, you know, people listening to your shit, copying the cassette tape or the CD, and by then passing it around and people dubbing it, you know what I mean? That's how you got your clout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what, you know, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. You know, I'd like to see, you know, more of these people stop being hypocrites and have people on. You know what I mean? I'd like to see, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see a guy like yourself go on one of these huge podcasts and then say, hey, Tom, I've seen the guests you have, And then I see the other guests you have. You know what I mean? Talking about the famous versus the maybe nobody knows this person until you let the world know who this person is, And I'd like them to quiz you and say, hey, what makes you put them on? Why would you do this? And what and just that one appearance for you, that would set you up. Now everybody's watching Tom Berryman.
Yeah.
Just one appearance. You know what I mean? That's all it takes. But you would think that these shows, would be giving up a gallon of blood by having people that are underdogs that rep the culture instead of a popular artist or even a superstar that has tons of views, and they think that, well, if they have tons of viewers, that's how we're going to make our money because that's who the people want to see, And I get it. But are we talking the furtherance of a culture, or are we talking about a bag again? Because having, even in a week, let's just say in a week, Tom, having one artist or one up-and-coming podcaster like yourself on their show once a week, you know what I mean? That's not gonna cripple them. Just like I caught a lot of slack, and I don't mean to ramble on. I'm sorry. This is, as you can tell, a very sore subject, and then I'll shut up and I'm gonna listen to your guides. I caught a little bit of heat from the Taylor Swift army, in my and some was public, but most of it was the DMs, because I guess they wanted to, even in the public, just the way she is perceived in the public, the shiny white, perfect, diplomatic, so kind, and the image, I guess her army has learned from her, so they don't even want to say, to me, on in public. They want to do it on my DMs. And they did, because I was on another, podcast like yourself that wants to give people that are like myself, that have been doing this for years and years and years, and really should be recognized for our hip hop history. You know what I'm saying? And the stories and the stuff we've done and the people we met and the startup people. But I said on this, listen, and I used the F word a couple of times, again, unapologetically hip hop, unapologetically for the underdogs. And thirdly, I am unapologetically, and I think more than anything else, unapologetically for the supporters of anything. The supporters of a podcast, the supporters of an artist or a superstar, the supporters of whatever, that don't get the return, respect, and love that they deserve. And by that, I said, if you didn't see it, I said, is Taylor Swift, is her career going to be over tomorrow if she followed somebody? Like, do you notice, does that not drive you batty? And again, Tom, I don't understand how the whole thing works. I'll be honest. And if that makes me sound older than I am, then so be it. But I've asked some people that are my age, I've asked people younger. Nobody can tell me. Why do these people have 10 million followers? And next to following, it says 0. Like they're following nobody, but they have 10 million followers. Like, why don't they follow anybody? And yet they get on, and this is what gets me. And everybody says I'm wrong. And even these people that were effing me to death, I said, listen, calm down. Would you like a Mikey Barslow shirt? Would you like a Mikey Barslow CD? I'll sign it and give it to you for free. You know what I mean? I'll send you a picture and I'll sign it. Will Taylor Swift do that without paying $6,000? I don't think she will. And that speech she gave at the Grammys and the MTV Awards and Billboard and all this other horse shit. And it's not just her. I use her because she's the pinnacle. You know what I mean? but there's everybody like her that is super duper stars, and I love them. I like Taylor Swift. I got nothing against her personally, but I guess it is kind of personal that I do have a problem that all these artists, go and if they just went out there and did their thing and took everybody's money and didn't say anything, I'd be okay with it. I'd be like, it's fucked up, but I'd be okay with it. But you know what gets me? When they get on the fucking stage and they go, to my fans, I can't live without my fans. You're the greatest fans in the world. Follow nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. How do you love your fans? You know, Tom, how much that would mean. I do, because I'm an old guy. And I'll say it out here. I'm an old guy. And having the DOC wear my shirt, or Lord Jazz, or Do It All, or Redman, or Cool DJ Red Alert, or Grandmaster Cass say anything about me, or whatever, makes me almost cry, dude. Because I'm thinking about a lifetime of supporting these people, you know what I mean? And some of them, if things would have worked out right, I'd be in the same place or maybe even surpass. You know what I mean? Because I started before a lot of these cats. You know what I mean? And so we're peers, but I still love them so much that it makes me feel like, that's why I say the best thing I could think of as an artist is getting a Grammy. That's why I say it means more than a Grammy to me. And Cool DJ Red Alert is like my Lord and Savior. You want to talk about, CDs or whatever, or tapes or whatever. I've got probably easily 100, that I kept, because like I said, the ones that I buy, whatever, of when he was on the radio, when he started at Kiss FM on the radio. I've got tapes of him before he even got on the radio. But when he followed me and when he saw my video for hip hop music and he said, that is very creative, I love it, you know what I mean? I wanted to crawl in a hole and die. I know it sounds like a little fangirl, So yes, Tom, it makes me so angry when, they don't, and I still don't understand it. And if you ever get the answer to that, please reach out to me and tell me, why is it that all these superstars don't follow anybody? You know what I mean? It doesn't cost anything. Does it cost anything? Like, if they keep a zero following, because I know personally, like I said, how much it means to me. So imagine that kid. And this is what I said also, which people said that was a little aggressive. And I said, and even that kid, and it was cut together, this thing. I had to trim it together. But basically what the whole clip was is whether it was some kid in an urban area, in the streets, in the ghetto, in the projects, or whether it was some kid on a farm somewhere, or whether it was some kid in the suburbs, and that's where it picked it up, some kid in the suburbs that their father paid $6,000 for some fucking concert tickets, and she can actually look at these people and say she loves them, you know what I mean, and not follow nobody. Yeah, I love you too, but I don't get nothing. But I would love you too if I was getting $6,000 for tickets. I was getting, $7,500 for a meet and greet. If you wanna, if you want a hat that she wore on stage, who knows how much that would be. Sometimes she would throw that out there to, a lot of famous people, like some, super famous Forbes guy would be in the audience and brought his kid. And, the media runs with it, Taylor Swift gives her hat to a little girl in the crowd. No, it wasn't just some random little girl from, Marcy Projects. It was a little girl that was from the Hamptons, and her father runs, the McDonald's Corporation. You know what I mean? It's like, that's why she did it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I mean, I can't say that, exactly that's why she did it, but there's zero the zero following thing just drives me bananas. But I'm still getting shitty messages. But I do I like her music. I mean I don't tool down the road listening to Taylor Swift all the time. But when I got when I got my actually my granddaughter don't really listen to Taylor Swift, but if it was, you know, something that my granddaughter might listen to or whatever, I'll pull down the road and listen to it, and then I find myself even when she's not with me going, "Hey, that was a pretty good tune," kind of like Terry Crews in White Chicks, when it make my way downtown. Remember that? That's kind of me sometimes, but
Classic.
but anyway, I'm sorry for going off on a rant. I always do this. I always promise myself and you as a host that I won't do it. But you know what? I love people so much, and to be honest with you, Kevin Hart. If I could flex, if I could drop a flex here, and then I'll let you get back to your interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll drop a flex. Kevin Hart one time says to me, it was in between takes. It was on Ride Along 2, and we're at the movie set. Now they tell you can't pull out your phone. You do, and it's like they're gonna clock you over the head, and you're gonna confiscate it, and that's it. And if you want to stay on as an extra, or anything less than a main performer, then they're gonna keep it till the end of the shoot, and then they'll give it back. But if you're just like a lowly extra and you don't want to give up your phone, you get kicked off. But anyway, so me and Kevin Hart are sitting there, we're chilling, and it just so happens, this one spot that they had me, it was. Did you see Right Along too?
Yeah. That's a while ago.
Did you see
I love
Right
Kevin
Along?
Hart.
Right. Well, it was long story short. I'm not going to go into that, and that's not what this is about. I got a lot of stories from that shoot. Especially Ice Cube saving a life, and it was amazing. It was an amazing shoot without being like the extra, just to watch what was going on with the stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've been on many movie sets, but this was pretty eventful. But anyway, so where they had me, and you had to stay in the same place because when they picked up the shoot after the break, you got to be in the same place because for continuity, you can't be, they can't make me go from here and then they come back and I'm over there. Like it would almost look like it skips. You know what I mean? So anyway, so I was right behind Kevin Hart, and me and him were talking, and he had his assistant there. I imagine that was his assistant, But we were sitting there talking, and we were going back and forth. And the first couple of conversations, it was just about life. Me talking about him, and I wasn't fanboying, but I was like, "Listen, I love what you do. I love your story." Because he was a grinder. You know what I mean? Regardless of what you hear about, Kevin Hart or whatever now with, getting all these star roles and whatever, and how he finagles them. Whatever. Like, there's a lot of hate going on, and I call it hate only because I know how he started. He grinded in the clubs and whatever. At least from my eyes, what you could see without the internet and what you could see once the internet came. So we were talking about that for the first couple times, and me praising him and love what you're doing. And I caught your stand-up act one time, and then we got into me, and he says to me, which was cool, like he gave a shit, you know what I mean? And I really felt, that he cared. Like, sometimes you could talk to people and you can really feel like the sincerity. Like you really, sometimes you can get fooled, but sometimes it really feels like they give a shit. So he was like, "So what about you? What do you do? This, that, the other." So I told him my story, told him about me and my man, how we met, college, this, that, and the other, and man, we just can't catch a break in the industry. A lot of people, unfortunately would always say if superstardom don't come, it means you suck. You know what I mean? And if nobody's heard of you, it means you suck. And I know for a fact that that's not the case, not because of us, but because of all those other people that I told you about that I know are talented, and they're not getting anywhere either. You know what I mean? So, that's why they say it's 1 in a million. But he says to me, he says, well, listen, we can't go backwards. And this is Kevin Hart saying this, quote unquote. And I might paraphrase a little bit because my memory, but for the most part, I'm on point. He says, listen, you can't go backward. All you can do is go forward, And he says, and I said, yeah, I know, man, but this whole internet thing, and I'm gonna stop you right there. If you know how he talks the same to people as he talks like in his bit, He said, I'm gonna stop you right there. He said, you can't go backward, you go forward. But what I'm gonna tell you right now, listen to what I'm saying. He said, the internet, are you hearing me? He said, the internet is not a launch pad for everybody. It cannot be, it will not be, and it will be for a lot of people for whatever reason. And he said, I'm like you. I'm learning more every day. I make sure my people fill me in every day because I like to know. I like to be in the know, he says. He said it just like that. I like to be in the know. He said, but he said, the internet ain't for everybody. He said, like you, like me, need that knowledgeable, connected person that can get you in the rooms. You know what I mean? Be it a meeting, be it in the room, be it, if you get that, in my case, you get that nice placement on a set, on stand-up, on a night where somebody just happened to be in the room. You know what I mean? Yeah. He said, but that's what you need. He said, luckily, I found, people to guide me. I found my go-getters early, my team early, and they weren't, no offense, he said to me, they weren't the type of team that you had, that did you dirty and whatever. My team was a good team. I had some bad apples, but once you weed them out, for the most part, I had a good team. And he says to me, once you find your go-getter, I'm hearing you. You know what I'm saying? You got talent. You know what I'm saying? And with that history and with your life story, he said, whoever is out there that takes somebody like yourself, and I'm going to say like you because, man, he goes, you got a story. He said, they will be responsible for telling the greatest Cinderella story ever told. So hopefully you'll go out there and get your go-getter. You know what I mean? And so, Tom, I've been looking for my go-getter. I'm not under any illusion anymore that this internet, the algorithm's going to hit or whatever. Does it happen? Absolutely. I mean, you see people like, which is another one that used to do the whole Taylor Swift thing. Oh, I love my fans, but don't follow anybody, is Lizzo, And I don't mean to name drop in a negative way. I'm just saying facts. You can look it up, and people can look up the facts. They say that they love their people and their fans and supporters, but yet they don't support them. Or, as they're going by, there's that one kid crying his eyes out. Please, please, I waited for 3 hours. Can I get this autograph? And they just kept it skipping. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, you know what I'm saying? You got guys like, Kevin Hart on the flip side of that. He might do that too. But I've seen firsthand that he's a good dude. Yeah. He talked to me and he basically validated me by hearing my talent. You know what I mean? And I haven't played it I pulled out my phone. Now, of course, it was years ago. He probably don't remember, but he went so far, and this is my big fail, as they say. Kevin Hart says, listen, I can't say what we could do for you, you know what I'm saying, in my organization. I do got a lot of, what do you say, coals in the fire, or a lot of something in the fire, or whatever. But he said, but listen, go find your go-getter, and you're gonna be good, because if your go-getter gets you where in the rooms you need to get in, your talent's gonna take care of it. And he gave me the number of his assistant, right? Gave me the number. That is gold, right? And I put it in my pocket. Put it in my pocket. I got Kevin Hart's assistant's number. Whoop. I don't know what's going to happen with it, Tom. I don't know. I was just so excited that I couldn't even stand it. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, I'm not going to bother to do it. I'm already planning in my head how I'm going to set up this call, and I'm not going to bother him. You know, I'm not going to fanboy. I'm not going to get crazy. I'm just going to wait like a week or two, you know, let him do his thing. And then I'll say, hey, man, I don't know if you remember me, but blah, 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 blah. You know, well, long story short, you go in this, you know, these scenes, and then they'll move you from one scene. And my scene, by the way, if you ever watch it again, when they were given the midnight toast, and he was like, you know, giving the toast, and it was him and Ice Cube and Ken Jeong were sitting around this little like kind of like it was a square of couches, and he's giving the toast and whatever, you know. It was that scene, you know. So I went from that scene, and then as you could see in some of my posts, I had some people, my supporters, they actually, you know, people were like, bullshit, you were in the movie, bullshit. Well, one of my supporters found the scene I was in, because it's quick, bro. Like, I was an extra, you know what I mean? And I'm in a couple scenes. If you slow it down and stop it in a couple scenes, you'll see me. You know, one, hey, there's my back. But in one scene where it's right after that midnight toast, Ken Jeong gets away from the two cops, which is Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. Ken Jeong bounces. Boom, he's gone. Hart's through the club. Now, Kevin Hart goes after him. Ice Cube goes after him. And when Ice Cube goes in the back of the club and he said, "Stop, police," you know, if you look to the left, I'm the guy squatting down by the table, and there was this dancer, you know, this dancer girl on the table. You know what I mean? You know, where when the scene is going, you know, they have these girls dancing up on the tables, and people are dancing next to them or whatever, and they're doing their thing. Well, I was ducking down when he said, "Freeze, police." You know, everybody had to duck because he's shooting, you know, they're shooting guns. It was funny because, you know, a little fun fact of that part, the girl fell off the table, and I caught her. She'd have broke her neck, dude. Like, I'm not trying to be a hero, but I was a hero. Like, yep. I was just doing my part, dancing on the side of the table, not with her. She's dancing on the table, and I'm dancing on the side of the table, you know, whatever. But she had these big ass heels and whatever on, so she slipped down. But anyway, through all of that, and then going back to the hotel and whatever, I lost the number for Kevin Hart's assistant. And I reached out, but it's never the same as, that's why they say if you go out, you got to be outside. You know, I'm outside. If you're outside in your scene, you have a better chance of politicking, networking, whatever you want to call it, you know what I mean, than sitting at home DMing people because they get 10 trillion. And I get that, you know, but anyway, so that's my whole story about, you know, popularity and what the new people should do when they get out there, all thrown in with a Kevin Hart story, man.
Man, that was cool. I've got a couple more questions for you. What's the most personal song of yours to you that was the most personal that you've made?
Oh, thanks for asking that, man. You know what? Honestly, bro, you're good at this shit, man. That's why I watch you, man, because you really, you know what I mean? Listen, it has to be, I would probably have to say it's a song that DJ Skills produced for me. It's called "All I Can Say." It's a song about my mom. My mom we come from, I'm like a fifth generation broke ass. Like my family has never had money. And even though we worked, I mean, all my family like worked. And a lot of my family by circumstance were single moms. You know what I mean? My mom was, my grandmother was a single mom. She had 4 kids. My mom was a single mom. I mean, they worked their ass off, and we were always broke. You know what I mean? And my mom always did what she could, man. You know what I mean? I mean, I never had what other kids had, you know. But my mom always did what she could. I never saw my mom growing up too much. My aunt. That's kind of what I had in common with Eminem. I grew up in a trailer park too. My aunt lived in a trailer park, and from the time I was born till I was like in third grade, or fourth grade, I would go into trailer park with my aunt, and then at fourth grade, my grandmother retired, and me and my mom lived with my grandmother. Then my grandmother took care of me and watched me. But when my grandmother did a lot with her, we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and she was a big Jehovah's Witness. She would go and do a lot of more of a Jehovah's Witness thing, and didn't want to be, saddled down by me, being 4 years, in fourth grade, however old that was. She would put me off at my aunt's house again. So I was always at my aunt's house, you know what I mean? But that song, if you listen to it, um, is what it's about. My nanny, my Pammy. Pammy is my aunt. My nanny is my grandmother, my mom. And to be honest with you, little fun fact, that song is the only song that I could probably never get through if I had to rap it. You know what I mean? Like if I had to perform that live,
Yeah.
I don't know that I could get through it. You know what I mean? Because especially now, like, and that's why, it's funny. And I don't want to turn this into a 3-hour story. I promise I'll condense this. But my grandmother, watched me again since I was 4 years, since I was in fourth grade. Obviously, when I was much older, and me and my man started rapping or whatever, my grandmother was one of the people that didn't understand the rap or whatever, but she supported me. So when she went off to her dialysis, she needed dialysis. She had bad kidneys. And so she went up to her dialysis. She was going there rocking two Weary Travelers buttons. Like she had one on her head. She had, we had different ones. One of my man, which was at the time JS3, he's Jim Sinner now, and then one was me, and then two Weary Travelers. So she had all the collection of buttons. She was rocking in buttons when I don't know about you, but back in the 80s, that was fashionable. If you liked the group, you had to have their button. So my grandmother rocked that, and it meant like the world to me. So I always wanted to make it. And when we got signed, I thought we were on our way because, our first producer was Khalis Bayan, which was the founder of Kool and the Gang. You know what I mean? And the guy that was really moving all the chess pieces to get us producers or whatever was Big Daddy Kane's manager at the time. You know what I'm saying? And so we thought we had a great, group here, you know what I'm saying, to get us where we need to be. So when my grandmother passed and my aunt passed and they never saw me make anything of the music or acting, my mom was next in line. Now, more than the financial and what that could mean if you're a superstar taking care of your mom, especially my mom's got severe lupus and liver disease. So beyond what the money could do to help her extend her life, it would mean everything, like it would for most parents, to see the dreams finally realized. At the very least, that to see me and my partner, not just me and my partner be validated in what we did do over the 35 years. Again, the first studio song was 89. We were signed in like 90 because of the interfighting with our record label and the people and what they wanted as a single, and not paying our producers and the producers leaving. It took 4 years for our single to get out. You know what I mean? Or for us to put a single out. So, so we've been through a bunch of shit all along the way, but all I can say would definitely be the song. And it would mean a lot if I made it to have my mom. And one more tidbit, my demo game was on point. So I used to send stuff out all the time. And long story short, I'll make this real short. Angie Martinez was about to have a baby. Angie Martinez, first on Hot 97. Now she's like a huge interviewer, hip hop interviewer. She's the queen of hip hop interviews. Well, I say of any interviews, the queen, because to me she's super dope. Yeah. And I got more love than you could imagine for Angie Martinez for a bunch of reasons, and a bunch of reasons that probably this far in her career and that long ago she probably don't even remember. But I will say, if you don't mind right here, I would say for a couple reasons. One, she was the first person to play Two Weary Travelers on the radio. You know what I mean? I don't know if I don't know the behind the scenes at the radio station, but she played our joint and it meant the world to us. You know what I'm saying? She actually played us twice. You know what I mean? She played one single and, it was just kind of like playing it. And then the next record that we had years later was actually, she played actually, I should say, The Jam Is On, she played. But then years later, she played a joint that we had called Lace 'Em. And that was a battle of the beats type situation that she picked. And she said, you know what? These guys, blah, 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 blah. And of course, she played us against the Locks. And at the time, the Locks were the hottest thing cooking. You know what I mean? Like the Locks was just popping. They were at the top of the New York elite. They were like, so it wasn't even like she played us against like another semi-new artist. It was like, okay, here's Two Weary Travelers and the brand new single, and here's the Locks, But anyway, as far as that song with my mom goes, she was about to have a baby, and I had the nicest way of getting my demos out there. What I did, Tom, and this is actually a good story. I know you didn't ask it, but you're gonna like this one, and it ties into the mom thing. I used to finagle, like, to get into these labels, because everything was unsolicited material. You had to finagle the girl answering the phones, which meant usually sending flowers or go get a nice gift card or certificate to like Ruth Chris or something like that. So that every time you called now, you just sent her to the top steakhouse in New York. You know what I mean? So she's going to take your call. Now, yeah. We didn't do that with Angie. I'm not saying like it was a bribery thing with her, but what she did recognize is game in that I wouldn't just send, a demo to the radio stations. I would make sure if I sent a CD or a cassette, I made sure it was most of the time polished. And if it wasn't ready to go, if it was on the way, like if I was about to get it pressed up, but I just wanted to get their feedback, listen to this, Tom. I would go to Build-A-Bear, right? I would get a Build-A-Bear. I would put it in a Mikey well, at the time it was Funky Hobo #1. I would put the Build-A-Bear, you know what Build-A-Bear is?
Yeah,
and, you have a Build-A-Bear and I'll tell you?
Yeah, it's called something else though.
Well, basically Build-A-Bear here is you get this, it's a skin of a bear, and you go and you put stuffing in it.
Yeah.
To fill it up to be a stuffed animal. And then you could get any amount of clothes. I mean, it's got clothes for days. Well, I would get a plain t-shirt, plain jeans, and these Timberland looking boots. And I'd go home, I'd put a Mikey Barslow design on it. I'd make it a Trav Gear shirt. I put a little logo on it. I put the tag on it. I had the pants. I'd have the Timberlands. And you could, in Build-A-Bear, you could put this thing in its hand where it could play your voice. You know what I mean? Like if you squeeze the hand, it would say, "Hi, how are you?" Whatever you wanted to say. What I would do is I would take my boombox or a little cassette player to Build-A-Bear if I was building it there, because you had to put the thing in the hand at the location. And I would put the song in that thing, and I'd put that thing in your hand. So then I'd ship it off. Angie would open up this Build-A-Bear, and I might put some extra flowers in it or whatever. She'd take it out, this Build-A-Bear, and it has my shirt on. She'd squeeze the hand, and it would play my song. Well, I gave the details of it, and she said, first of all, nobody, I don't know if she remembers this, and I wish I had the tape. She said, nobody is fucking with my demo game. My demo game was nice, because she's never seen that. You know what I mean? But she said, and I guess, she was emotional too. She called my mom's song, all I can say, she called it the Great Mother's Anthem. She was like, she said, man, this guy's going to make me cry. Maybe it's that I'm going to have a baby, but you got this, man. This song is really something. You know what I mean? This, and it's not just for his mother. There's many mothers. She said, I haven't had my baby yet, but if my baby sang this to me, I'd be crying, So it made me feel good. That song, Angie Martinez said, that's why it was dubbed the Great Mother's Anthem, because that's what she called it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So not a long story, man. I know you're like, God damn, you're gonna be reaching out to other podcasts going, listen, if you get Mikey Barslow on, you better have a 3-hour slot, because this motherfucker can talk.
Yeah. My next question is, what's your process when you're making a song? Your whole writing, everything.
That one I'll someday. I mean, most of the time, what I'll do is I back in the day, when I first started, with my man, I wrote a lot of pro-black lyrics. Like I lived it. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a lot of racist stuff happen to me. I saw it firsthand. I researched Black history on my own. Because they're not going to teach it to you in school. If you want to know it, you got to learn it. I learned it, and then seeing everything in the news. So during that period of time, I used to have ideas in my head what I want to write about. Hey, look what happened in Howard Beach. I got to write a song about that. You know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying? Yusef Hawkins, Michael Griffith, like the list goes on back. I mean, to today, the list that's going on for 40 years, it's still happening. But back then, it seemed like it was like every other day. So then I used to have the idea in my head, and then I would start writing it on paper, ideas. And then once I got the beat, I would just take out words and whatever to make it match the beat. But in the last, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years at least, I always like to have the beat. So if somebody's got a beat for me and they say, whatever, or if I make the beat, I'd have to make the beat first, and then I'd be able to really vibe out to it, because it is a lot better that way. I mean, in the very, very before even that, back in the 80s when I used to write, my thing was like a lot of people, which I'm sure you heard this, you'd put on your favorite Big Daddy Kane song and you'd write lyrics to that. Or you'd put on LL Cool J and write to that, or the Crash Crew, and you'd write to their beat. And what I found when I did that, more than ever, even if you were a big fan of them, if you're writing to somebody else's song, because their lyrics are going to be going, they're going to be rapping while you're trying to write. So it's a little distracting, but if you pull it off and you write off your song, you come off sounding just like that artist. You know what I mean? Like, I know I did anyway. Like, I always used to joke around, like, for a long time, Crash Crew or UTFO, I'd put on their joints, and I'd write to certain songs that I said, I want one with this tempo or this vibe. And if they did a remix, they could easily slide my verse right on there. It sounds like it was made for that song, you know?
Yeah.
So I stopped doing all that, and now I get, we do it to the beat.
It's interesting to see everybody's different take on it. And yeah, it's definitely cool. I love Big
There's a
Daddy
lot of
Kane.
people. What is a lot of people? What is a lot of the people that what would you say is like their take on how they do things? They usually have the beat and then they write to the beat, or
Yeah,
all
a
the way
lot of
around.
them. A lot of them usually have the beat right to the beat. Very
Yeah.
rarely someone will say they write something first, but most of them, yeah, they get the beat first and they write to that.
Yeah. It's funny. You know what it is, and I tried to tailor it down because I did do a lot of talking with. I know one question I should just have a quick 5 minute answer, but you know what it is with me is when you get on shows that and I know it could be a hindrance. It could also be a plus because you get like that extra information. You know what I mean? But sometimes, like the thing about my mom, it's there's other fun facts that are connected to your question. You know what I mean? Like, so that's my song, but the reason I came up with it is because of this, and I'd like to, that's my favorite song because it is. And Angie Martinez said this, and and it all stems from that song. And plus, I like to, always big up the people that have ever helped me or done anything. And DJ Skills, did that track, so that was really dope. You know what I mean? And so that's that's the thing in a nutshell with that. I know a lot of times, I ramble on, and I try not to. You know what I mean? But some things are just triggers that'll give you more information. But the one thing, with the Taylor Swift and the artists out there that really should consider I don't call them fans, because to me, fans is like throwing cattle in a pen. I know it sounds corny, but to me, that's when I see fan, like a fan, it's just a generalized. To me, if you're supporting my dreams, you know what I mean? If you're a diehard supporter, you know what I mean? Then you're my friend. You're not a fan. You're my friend, even if I don't know you. I will call you my friend. And if I don't know you and you're just an avid supporter, I'll call you my supporter, because the word supporter, by definition, seems to mean more than fan. You know what I mean? And if as a fan myself, I'd rather, one of my people say, yeah, man, Mikey Barslow's been a great supporter. I'd rather that than Mikey Barslow's been a great fan. You know what I mean? Fan makes it seem like, like almost like a girl thing, like.
Yeah, I would say Funky over number one.
That's the classic. That was my first. It was, well, the release. It wasn't my first joint that I did as a solo artist, but it was my first thing that I put out. There's a few songs floating around that I could have put out first as a solo artist, but that's my first solo debut. And as you see on there, that's what kind of made me and not necessarily that, but some of the ideas that I had, along with the absolutely worst devastating events that could ever happen to an artist in this industry, happened to us. And my partner, Jim Sinner, just had it. Like, we got fucked every way you could get fucked. Like, it was like bad. Like, and we did everything we were supposed to do. We showed up, and we thought we were with the right people. I mean, Christ, like all the celebrities at this first studio and where we were signed, and my friend, Jim Sinner, he was even on Sherman Hemsley, who was George Jefferson. Remember the Jeffersons, the TV show? He came in to record an album at our studio and asked if my man would be on his record, and he was on his record. So we definitely thought we was going to take off. And then, like I said, we had Big Daddy Kane's manager pulling in all these artists that were huge DJs, huge producers, and we thought we were going to be the next thing. But like I said, our label wasn't paying these people, so they were stepping off, and the bad feelings and resentments from the wasted time and getting cool with these producers and DJs. You get cool with them, you're laughing, you're joking, you're eating with them, you're kind of spending a week straight with these people. You create a really great body of work, and then they don't get paid. It's almost like they thought we were in on the scam. Like thank you for doing this for us, and the fact that you're not getting paid, oh well. But what was happening is we would get close to finishing an album or even finish an album. And back then, if you don't know, it wasn't this, like today, and sadly, a lot of my superhero idols are going along with the recording process of today, which is everybody's got a short attention span. You know what I mean? Like if you make a song past 2.5 minutes, you ain't going to do nothing in the industry today. But back then, it was average. Like you would make a 4-minute song, and there would be 15 to 20 songs on an album. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like you get like 8 2-minute songs, and that's an album. It's like, what the fuck, man? Now, I'm not talking about for radio. You scaled it down for radio sometimes, unless you had a really dope song and you had a really coochie cool in with a DJ that would play a 5-minute song or 6-minute song. But for the most part, all radio records had to be, 3 minutes, 3.5. But, the album versions, you had 5-minute songs, but they were taking our albums and beating feet with them. That's why I said to you, if you could find every producer we ever worked with, be it famous or be it not famous, because there was a lot of people from around the way that were dope upcoming producers that got our album right now. You know what I mean? There's like 5 albums out in the universe somewhere that, that's 60 songs. That's, 62 Willie Traveler songs are in the universe somewhere. Yeah. So that's the other thing when people say, when they look at my body of work, they look at, the stuff that I'm putting out now to catch people up that people ask for, the mixtapes and by the way, that my first mixtape, FH1 Presents The Rise of Mikey Barslow, that should have really been a two-eary, right, that one right there. That one right there, with all due respect to Jim Sinner, that should have been a Two Weary Travelers album, a lot of those tracks. Yeah. But when me and him sat down and he said, this industry's fucked, I want no part of it anymore. And plus, creatively, I said, I'd like to do an album where there's some rock on there, like some rock tracks, some reggae, some R&B, some whatever. He wasn't down with that either. He was like, listen, man, I'm not with that. But even if I was with that, I really don't feel like, I'm writing for that and the industry, whatever. But me and him are like brothers. You know what I mean? Like, so much like brothers, like family. Like you could have disagreements and not talk for a year, but then come back together. I would always, from day one till now, and he knows this, and I've said this in other interviews because I'm not afraid. My masculinity is high enough to say this. I love my brother so much that I would give him my kidney. You know what I mean? I mean, he says, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, like joking around. But all he has to do is ask. He knows in the past, anything he's ever asked me, I was there. You know what I mean? And if I wasn't there, it was either I didn't know about it or he might have said something I didn't take. But anyway, but just to touch on that, that could have been that. But because after the whole Eminem situation, which, I know, we won't get into that, but maybe another time if you have me on. But the whole Eminem situation and the records we put out and going through that whole thing and getting blackballed and all that, I just had it too, to where I legitimately took a 2-year hiatus myself, not because of any devastation, but just because I was a beaten dude, that I had some top-notch records, better than most of the shit that was out there. After the record labels validated me, like record labels said, we want to sign you. And I went there and they found out about that other situation and I was blackballed. They basically said, we can't mess with you. That kind of did something to my mental. So I took 2 years off. So when I came back, I reinvented myself. Again, another story, another time, where I came up with Mikey Barslow for a name. But I came up with Mikey Barslow, and my man Center said, yo, why don't you just throw out a mixtape? I said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I already planned on that. And he said, yeah, but you should call it this. And he did that cover art and shit that you see there. My man Jim Center did. And he came up with the whole, and I said, that's dope, because whether he knew or not, the whole concept of that FH1, that was Funky Hobo #1. That was my old name, right? Presents the rise of Mikey Barslow. So what that means is I took a bunch of tracks that were Two Weary Travelers tracks. I took a couple tracks that I recorded that were my tracks, and all these tracks are what made me me at that moment. That's what made me Mikey Barslow. Everything you hear in those lyrics made me me. And once I started letting people hear it, I mean, I'm talking about a lot of big name people. You know, I knew I had something, because that's why I say it's legend approved. They were like, this is dope, because we were always the type of group that if everybody else is going left, we went right. If all the other production and it was popular to do this and they used these instruments and sounded like this, we deliberately did it completely opposite. Now, to most people, they'd listen to it and say, yo, who are these oddballs that are sounding like this? But if you're into originality, and you love hip hop, that was what was for you. And then add to it, I get tracks where we have DJ Skills in there and he's doing the scratching. So that right there is if you were going to ask me what's my favorite project, that one right there, FH1 presents the rise of Mikey Barslow.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, barring that was just a joke. The Marky Markle, that's what he called it. He said, yo, I got you looking like Mark. He said, I did your album, your mixtape cover. Got you looking like Marky Mark and everything. Like as a joke. Yeah. But I said, listen, I know you did it as a joke, but I'm going to take that joke and run with it, because I didn't think I was sexy. I mean, I was in better shape there, of course, than, as time progressed. But I did it as a joke, as kind of like a stereotypical thing. You know what I mean? Like, and when people see that picture, and it gave the desired effect. People look at that cover, and then they play the record, and they go, holy shit, I was not expecting what I was hearing by looking at that cover. You know what I mean? So that's my story, bro.
Man, I love it. I got a team that shares my vision, so my terminal stress seems to be in remission. I love that line too.
Yeah, man. Well, because I had actually written, since you brought that up, since you brought them bars up, my terminally stressed seemed to be in remission. Terminally stressed was a song that I wrote because I had a full-fledged nervous breakdown. Yeah. Before it was cool to go to counselors and shrinks and everything, I was the poster boy for being on antidepressants. And, because when I was little and you had a problem and you were sad, you know what your antidepressant was? Your mom smacking you in the head saying, get over it. You know what I mean? And that's what it was, And so I wrote that song and I sat on it. And then years later, I said, you know what? I'm going to finish this song. So I finished Terminally Stressed. But in that song, is what it was referring to because I hadn't written it all the way, but I had terminal stress. So that's what it was. And now, oddly enough, again, to tie into you saying that, my next single, the last single that's going to be released off my album, is called Terminally Stressed. I got it coming out. I got it coming out soon. It would have been out already, but I sent it to the mastering place. I trust these guys.
Yeah.
Because I went to a couple people, and the one place actually hijacked my record for like a month. And I said, "Is it ready yet?" Because I was hoping to put it out the latest for New Year's Day. You know, once the clock hit 12, hey, Mikey Barslow song. And it didn't happen because so I dropped them and I got this other company that I'd always wanted to work with. And long story short, it's coming out soon. Of course, you're going to get a advanced copy. Um, I did play it for a couple of, the celebrity legends that I love. And what they said kind of unitedly, they didn't say the exact same thing, but they all said kind of unitedly, listening to the lyrics of Terminally Stressed and the whole point of view thing. You know how nowadays you'll look at these TikTok videos or Instagram, it'll say point of view. And then you watch the video and acts out the point of view. Well, my point of view is a dope 90s rapper stuck in the struggle. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like who can't relate to that? Like, as an artist, as an everyday guy struggling with his bills or working overtime at the plant and you can't catch up, like, this song is for you. And another message, the message behind it is basically a lot of mental health issues, expressed over a 90s vibe production, by Jim Sinner. Jim Sinner did the production on this. And I have, my girl Maya is doing the singing on it. And I'm really proud of Maya. Killed it. She killed the vocals on this. I'm proud of it. I can't wait till it comes out. And I still wanted to come in a vibe like you're in a time warp. Like when you watch a movie and you watch a movie and it'll come on the front. It'll say 1992.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now you're watching the movie. Now, okay, I get it. This is supposed to be in 1992. It's kind of like that vibe, but only with a song. It's really kind of cinematic. I think you're gonna like. You'll get a copy of it first. You know that. But and in the world. But everybody was saying exactly what I said. It's the most relatable song that they've heard in a while. Like legitimately relatable. And if every starving artist, every struggling artist out there don't relate to this song, I don't care if you're a trending rapper, a hip hopper, a rocker, or whatever. If you don't relate to this song, and then also, what it is to be in the struggle and want to make it so bad that you cry yourself to sleep at night, that you want to be on the Grammys or you want to be, even opening a show for your favorite group. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I've had those nights, man, where you just, you like, you get so depressed that you can't even watch the Grammys. You can't even watch Yo MTV Raps anymore because you're like, I want to make it that bad that it breaks my heart to watch this other music. I can't even listen to music. You know what I mean? So that's who it's for. And the other verses are basically saying, I got so many responsibilities. They're coming out my ass. I work my 9 to 5 every day, but I still get no cash. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like for the everyday working guy. So like I said, I'm for the underdog through and through. So if you're an underdog out there, I'm your guy. You know what I mean? And I appreciate you because I know you're for the underdogs, Tom.
Man, I appreciate you. And yeah, what a perfect way to end this, man. I appreciate everything you do. I love your music. I've been listening to everything, and I can't wait for that. I really want to hear it first, man. But when it comes out, I'll be definitely tuning in. And we got to do a part two if you're keen.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as the record comes out, I was going to surprise you and send it to you, so that I can say, hey, like while we're doing this, I was going to say, hey, I'm going to send you something. And it'd be like a surprise thing.
Yeah.
Because like I said, my demo game is nice. You know what I mean? So I was gonna do that. But to be honest with you, I'm not one of these people. Like you see a lot of these artists, they're so anxious for you to hear what they did in the studio. It ain't even ready. You know what I mean? Like it ain't mixed, it ain't mastered. They barely did anything to their vocals, and they're playing it for people. I'm the guy that when you hear it, I want you to hear it done, finished. Like I'll let you hear it first, but I want you to hear it done. So to get back to that, you're gonna get a copy first. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate you. I couldn't wait to get on here with you, man. If for no other reason, but I respect you so much in what you're doing. And I know it's not easy for a working guy like yourself and a lot of the working guys that are working and whatever. It's not like, Sprite came down and said, Tom Berryman, here's $10 trillion.
Yeah.
Now all you got to do all day is your podcast. You're a guy that works all the time. You're grinding. You got your family stuff. You got your own stuff. You got other, but yet you're still doing this and you're giving people stories they want to hear and you're giving people opportunities that they might not otherwise get because there's not a lot of people. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of people like you out there. Even a lot of these podcasts that are out there, it's funny. And I'll end it on this note. There's a lot of people that aren't even as famous as you, that don't even do what you do and have had on who you've had on. And they'll say, yeah, you could be on my podcast for $500.
Crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, listen, man, I don't pay, read my lips. I don't pay for shit. I don't pay for shit. Now, listen, if I can help you out, you know what I'm saying, here and there, and it's like a help out, then that's cool. Like if there's if there comes a time where I run across a podcast or whatever, but most podcasts, at least the ones that I've been on, they have integrity. You know what I'm saying? They want to do what you're doing. They want to spread, in their case, they want to spread hip hop. They want to spread, help for the underdogs, so they're my kind of people like you are, you know what I mean? But there are people out there, man, so God bless you, man. And know this, that, like I say to other people, and you could see for a fact the way I talk on here, when I get where I'm going and eventually, God willing, I will get there. There will be, and I'm just going to say it at the end of the show. It's just too hard to, there will be that Nori or that Joe and Jada or that Carmelo Anthony or that, whoever, Shannon Sharp, that says, Mikey Barslow, come on down on my big day. And if it launches something, before I thank God, I'm going to be thanking people like you that believed in me and wanted to give me an opportunity and says, you know what? I listen to your music and, I like it and this, that, and the other. Especially those, like yourself that not just because I'm going to be on or whatever, or because I sent it, but because they like the music and they listen to it like they would listen to Snoop Dogg. You know what I mean? I will thank you before those people. You know what I mean? I'm going to be bringing you out to the shows. I'm going to be, trust me, I'm a very appreciative dude. So I appreciate you, and we'll end it there. Lots of love to you, Tom, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Anytime you need me on or want me on, anything I can do for you, period, you just say the word, man.
Thank you, Rod. Thanks for everything, and it's been a pleasure.
ThomasBerrymanTV, MC Wicks, you are now rocking with the greatest. Worldwide, universal, we kick games, drop gems, knowledge expand the brain. We don't speak no lie, this all factual. Travel through sound waves, international. My aura is shining, but that's natural from the cosmos. Supernatural, extraterrestrial with the ill flow. Too high, too elevated. Art and culture is beautiful, we gon' celebrate it. Documented this history in the making. Connecting with the rest of the planet through conversation. Building from the ground up, this the foundation. Through the power of thought manifestation. Gift the gab, champion rap, greatness. Timeless like hieroglyphs. Who would've ever pictured this? Blow.